Opel's latest creation is the Crossland X, a subcompact crossover. Part SUV, part minivan. It aims to combine the best of both worlds. In other words, generous space inside with a fresh, cutting-edge look. And the Crossland X certainly succeeds in that. Car tester Emmanuel Schaefer mentions that the strongest growth is in the B segment or small cars. Their sales figures have doubled in the last 4 years, so car makers are scrambling to roll out new B segment models. Opel's contribution is the Crossland X. It resembles its somewhat bigger brother, the Mocha X, but tones down the sportiness and aggressive looks in favor of greater practicality in everyday driving. We test drove the largest available engine, the 1.2-liter turbo gasoline with 96 kilowatts. It heaves the Crossland X from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 9.1 seconds, with a top speed of 206 kilometers per hour. Emmanuel explains that when a car maker introduces a new model in a segment, they want it to stand out from its competitors. Opel achieves this with driver assists, such as pedestrian detection, which the Crossland X is the first in its segment to offer. The front reveals the connection between the Mocha and the Crossland. Opel's logo is mounted on the grille, flanked by chrome winglets. The embedded low-mounted fog lights emphasize its SUV credentials. The visible underbody protection should do away with any worries about scratched paint. Depending on the trim level, the colors of the side mirrors and roof contrast with the rest of the body. The gently sloping roof contour recalls a minivan. LED taillights are only offered with the highest trim level, the Selection, as it's called. Folding down the rear seats expands the trunk volume from 410 to 1,255 liters. The interior gives a neat impression. Many of the switches are set on the steering wheel. The 8-inch touch infotainment system adds at least 650 euros to the price, regardless of the trim level. Air conditioning is standard, but automatic climate control only comes with the Selection line. Opel is rolling out the Crossland X with a range of 5 engines, starting with a 1.2-liter gasoline engine with 60 kilowatts. The most powerful, though still quiet, fuel-efficient, is a 1.2-liter turbo gasoline engine with 96 kilowatts. Emmanuel describes the Crossland X's suspension as offering both comfort and sportiness, though a bit more comfort than sportiness. He forgives its slight tendency to roll. The body sits a little higher than normal, saying it's no problem, and the car takes curves nimbly and swiftly. The Crossland X replaces the Mocha X as the entry-level model for Opel's X range. The biggest model, the Grandland X, is on its way. It will round off the X range at the top. Prices for the Crossland X start at just under 17,000 euros in Germany. But the 1.2 turbo edition we tested will set you back at least 21,000 euros. The Octavia is one of Skoda's most successful vehicle ranges and includes the sporty RS models. Recently, the Octavia underwent a facelift, and we're going to test its mettle. Our tester, Michelle Assenmacher, says she's going to test the Octavia RS at a driver safety training center, and she knows it'll be fun. That's largely thanks to the car's turbo diesel engine, which churns out 135 kilowatts of power. It propels the new Octavia RS to a top speed of 230 kilometers an hour and lets it go from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.9 seconds. Our test model sells for around 33,500 euros in Germany. The slalom course isn't the only part of the test site that's underwater. and a flooded roundabout, Michelle tries to get the Skoda Octavia RS to stay on track. That's harder than it looks.
Okay,
I give up, she says, and leaves this part to the professionals. This is what it looks like with a trained pro behind the wheel. But Michelle says she's game to tackle this slalom course. The Octavia's RS models, badged as VRS in some markets, have a 15mm lower sport suspension. Other features that add to their sportiness include progressive steering and optional dynamic chassis control, which lets drivers choose between sport, normal, and comfort modes. Inside, Michelle shows us one of Skoda's simply clever solutions that can be found in the Octavia RS. She can open this water bottle with just one hand, drink from it, and close it again while keeping one hand on the steering wheel. The new front looks masculine and sporty. Full LED headlights set on either side of the radiator grille make the car appear wider. The hood and the sharper lines at the sides give the car an edgier look. At the back, the rear spoiler adds a sporty accent. The abbreviation RS stands for Racing Sport. RS variants made their way into the Skoda range in the year 2000. Since then, these sporty models have won over more and more fans. Skoda's Octavia RS has proved particularly popular. Michelle says she likes taking tight curves with it best. The car whines and roars, and it's just, wow. It's a driving experience that you simply have to experience for yourself. It's incredible because the car is so good on curves, and that literally leaves Michelle speechless.
Wow, ich bin wirklich einfach gerade sprachlos.
All in all, the RS's facelift has done more than just spruce up its outer appearance. Changes have been made inside as well. The result is a sporty sedan, which has certainly put a smile on our tester's face. Michelle says she's had lots of fun today. She could leave the traffic behind and push the Octavia RS to its limits, though she admits it was more her limits that were being tested because in the hands of the pros, the car can definitely do more. She thinks the Octavia RS is a good mix. It's fun, as she found out today, and good for everyday use, thanks to its simply clever solutions. Mini has rolled out its first plug-in hybrid, the SE Countryman All-4. A 3-cylinder gasoline engine and an electric motor achieve a total system power of 165 kilowatts. Mini says it will cover 100 kilometers on just 2.3 liters of fuel. The electric-only range goes to 42 kilometers. The price starts at 35,900 euros in Germany. Honda presents the sedan version of its current Civic. Now in its 10th generation, it profits from 40 years of model history. The newly developed gasoline engine puts out 134 kilowatts and moves the car from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just over 8 seconds. The new Civic sedan starts at 25,520 euros in Germany. A Porsche with a hybrid system. And a Porsche with 4 seats. The Panamera has already dished out its share of surprises for sports car fans. Now for the second generation, the Panamera 4 plug-in e-hybrid has been joined by another with 500 kilowatts of system power. But for today, we'll stick with the less powerful plug-in hybrid. Its electric motor and 243 kilowatt V6 gasoline engine add up to a total system power of 340 kilowatts. Fuel consumption is rated at just 2.5 liters per 100 kilometers, but only as long as the driver resists the temptation to really step on it. Our tester Reinhold Deisenhofer points out that since the Panamera e-Hybrid weighs 2.2 tons, it takes some power to push that weight from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 5 seconds. But the system has a good 700 newton meters of torque. The normal drive mode recharges the battery on the go. And then there are the Sport and Sport Plus modes. In all three, the overboost function temporarily steps up the boost pressure for the pickup typical of Porsche.
Übersteuert immer alles und das ist typisch Porsche.
As in most hybrids, the display can show the energy flow at any time. A Porsche is a Porsche is a Porsche. The design has spoken the same easily recognizable language for decades, and the Panamera is no exception. The e-Hybrid differs from the four-seaters gasoline-powered version only in small details, such as the green rim badging and the green brake calipers. The Panamera 4 e-Hybrid is 5 meters and 5 centimeters long. The longer executive body style is available on request. Tucked under the front hood is the V6 with 2.9 liters capacity. Reinhold realizes that with a Porsche, sound is always a factor. In all-electric drive, the e-Hybrid glides over the asphalt on its air suspension in almost total silence. But if you really bring out the performance, it sounds just like the Porsches we've always known. The Panamera e-Hybrid pounces from 80 to 120 kilometers per hour in just 3.1 seconds, only a fraction of a second slower than other Panamera variants, because of the few hundred extra kilos the battery adds. Reinhold explains that it takes about 6 hours to fully recharge the e-Hybrid's battery from a European 220-volt household outlet. A quick charge station for an extra 4,500 euros will cut 2 hours off that time. The Panamera e-Hybrid's competitors are the Mercedes-Benz S500 and the BMW 7 Series in plug-in hybrids. But in the family of Panameras, the Porsche e-Hybrid is actually the lowest priced of them all. Pickups have a long tradition of a simple concept. Driver up front, cargo in the back. Today we'll look at the newest developments in pickups, starting with the Fiat Fullback. Based on the Mitsubishi L200, it relies on proven Japanese high-volume production technology. It comes with either rear-wheel or all-wheel drive. Under the hood is the newest generation of Mitsubishi's light alloy, 4-cylinder, 2.4-liter, 133-kilowatt engine. We tested it with the 5-speed automatic transmission, but it comes alternatively with a 6-speed manual transmission. A ladder frame with coil springs in front and leaf springs in the back means the Fullback's ride is not that comfortable, but off-road it tackles just about anything. The all-wheel drive gear reduction and a lockable center differential make you feel you could go anywhere. Tester Christoph says the fullback would be perfect for fetching wood for his fireplace twice a year, but it's just too big for the rest of the time. Nissan's Navara, with all-wheel drive and a double cab, costs more than 31,000 euros in Germany. And if you equip it as lavishly as our test car, you quickly get closer to 40,000 euros. What clearly sets the Navara apart from its competitors, the double cab version we're driving, with 2 rows of seats, is the only one with coil springs rather than leaf springs. That makes it more comfortable to drive than the competitors, while it's just as competent off-road. Despite being outfitted with stabilizers, the axles work together perfectly. Rear-wheel drive is the Navara's default, but when needed you can manually switch to 4-wheel drive, and the central differential can be locked. Like the Fiat Fullback, the Navara has a classic steel frame, ensuring that the car doesn't fall apart even with the roughest treatment, for example when towing heavy trailers. The Navara is the only pickup certified to tow 3.5 tons. Spending 2 years in Australia gave car tester Moritz an affinity for vehicles like the Nissan Navara, but while it's prepared for anything in the outback, it's not ideal for the big city. The current Toyota Hilux is already the 8th generation of this legend among off-road pickups. For more than 50 years, it's been the world's universal transport. 18 million Hiluxes have been built. It's hard to be a bigger legend. And it wouldn't be easy to make the Hilux any more robust. But Toyota says the new model's steel frame body makes it even more solid. That's hard to imagine when you know that millions of Hiluxes have been put to the toughest tests and still hold up after decades. You'd think there would be nothing left to improve. And subjectively, it's not easy to tell. The Hilux is like a fortress. The engine pulls and the wheels rumble, as they always have. The price for the Hilux with all-wheel drive and a double cabin begins at almost 35,000 euros. But if you want one as nice as our test car, you'll be pushing 40,000 euros here too. Jochen Frerich says the Hilux has been the construction site vehicle all over the world for almost 50 years. It's robust through and through. His only criticism? The 150 horsepower engine is a bit weak and not certified to pull more than 3.2 tons. Otherwise, this is the most iconic pickup of all. There's a difference between the 3 pickups. All of them climb steep grades effortlessly. But downhill is a different matter. Only the Toyota and the Nissan have electronic hill descent control to help them move down gravel roads safely. They all come in common with little boy thrill you get when taking the driver's seat. All 3 feel like they were made for playing in that great big sandbox, the world. The open beds offer some practical advantages, but hardly anyone would use them regularly except on the job at construction sites and the like. These trucks are big, cumbersome fuel guzzlers. In sum, we see the disadvantages, but love these vehicles anyway for being so different. And after a hard day's work, what could beat a few beers at a tailgate party? Today, we're test driving Volkswagen's first car with a 16-valve engine. The Scirocco II released this second generation of the successful sports coupe in March 1981. Named after a hot Sahara wind, the new Scirocco boasted exclusive design and reliable mass production technology. Our expert Christoph Bauer admits he has ambivalent feelings about the Scirocco II. After all, it's synonymous with the 80s, an era of notoriously questionable taste. Think shoulder pads, tapered leg jeans, net tops, and Milli Vanilli. This car fit right into the disco age, even though it boasted an illustrious lineage. The Scirocco's predecessor was the VW Carmen Ghia. It combined the chassis and technology of the Beetle with styling by the Italian designer Luigi Segre. The first Scirocco came out in 1974. VW supplied the mechanics, while the design was the work of Giorgetto Giugiaro, the man responsible for the VW Golf. For the second generation, Volkswagen took charge of the design itself. Christoph recalls the slogan, "excitingly sensible," used to advertise the Scirocco II. It sounds contradictory, but it hits the nail on the head. This was a family-friendly car. It had 4 seats. The interior was more spacious than its predecessors, and on top of that, it was fuel-thrifty because of its sporty, aerodynamic body. That covers the sensible part, but with just 112 horsepower, it was hardly exciting. That only changed in 1985 with the introduction of this model, the GTX, and its exciting 139 horsepower. The improved performance was a reaction to slow initial sales that lagged behind the model's predecessor. VW urgently needed to win over a younger clientele. The 16-valve engine goes from 0 to 100 in just 8.1 seconds. This acceleration performance doesn't stop till 208 kilometers per hour. Those are respectable values. And to ensure that it stops with as much precision, the car was equipped with disc brakes on all 4 wheels. Christoph points out that the GTX 16V's body also took its cue from sports cars and was initially equipped with one of the most popular accessories of the time, the X1 all-round spoiler set from Kamai. Later, the parts were supplied by VW, like here. The rear spoiler provided greater downforce and improved road holding. It's made of rubber, typically 1980s. In comparison with the angular first generation of Sciroccos, the second generation seems much more grown up. The gently rounded edges reduce air resistance and thus fuel consumption. The chassis is 20 centimeters longer, increasing space inside. Well-shaped sports seats add a bit of pizzazz to the otherwise sober interior. Christoph points out the letters, DOCH16V, which stand for double overhead cam, 2 overhead camshafts and 16 valves, 2 intake and 2 exhaust valves on each cylinder. This technology squeezes 139 horsepower from the 1.8-liter engine, 27 horsepower more than with the 8-valve engine. VW first unveiled the 16-valve technology at the IAA in 1983, and in 1985, in the Scirocco II, Volkswagen's first 16-valve engine was in the dealerships. Despite its front-wheel drive, the Scirocco offers plenty of driving fun. Its 16-valve engine can even challenge a Porsche 924. Christoph says he has never driven a Scirocco II before, but still feels immediately at home in it. All the controls and buttons are right where you'd expect them to be, so you don't need to study a thick instruction manual. And that makes the Scirocco II likable, as far as Christoph is concerned. But it never became a bestseller. In 11 years of production, only 300,000 were manufactured. The first generation of Sciroccos saw 500,000 produced in just 7 years. Our car expert sums up. The Scirocco II is practical, robust, reliable, and with the 16-valve engine, sporty too. And judged by the aesthetic standards of the 80s, it's fairly good-looking. Nonetheless, it never sold like it was expected to, and eventually another VW product put it out of its misery, the Corrado. The Corrado began rolling off the assembly line in 1988 and was simply more powerful and modern. So production of the Scirocco II ceased in 1992, but not before its 16-valve engine made it a milestone in automotive history.
ist er trotzdem ein Meilenstein der Automobilgeschichte.
The Scirocco II set the industry standard of 4 valves per cylinder, and the Scirocco name lives on. In 2008, VW launched the third generation of the sports coupe.